Hey everyone, you're watching We Had That, and today I'm going to talk about the 1980 Flash Gordon figure Beastman, not to be confused with this Beastman from Masters of the Universe, who came out 2 years later in 1982. In the late 70s, a producer named Lou Scheimer got the rights to make a movie of the old 1930s comic strip character Flash Gordon. Since the amazing success of the movie Star Wars in 1977, science fiction was extremely popular at the time, and Scheimer was able to convince NBC to back a live-action Flash Gordon for prime time. Unfortunately, it would have cost too much money to film what he wanted to shoot, so he reluctantly went back to NBC with the idea of switching to an animated format instead of live action. NBC agreed, and the cartoon was produced by Filmation, who had already been making popular cartoons for years, such as various Archie cartoons, Star Trek the Animated Series, cartoons based on DC characters, and Fat Albert, just to name a few. Star Wars action figures had made so much money for George Lucas and Kenner that I would imagine once the cartoon was underway, it wasn't very difficult to set up a deal with Mattel to make a line of Flash Gordon action figures in scale with the Star Wars toys. In 1979, the first 4 Flash Gordon action figures arrived in stores with the promise of 2 more figures in 1980. One of the 2 figures promised for 1980 was Beastman. At roughly the same time, producer Dino De Laurentiis was also working on pre-production for the Flash Gordon live-action movie starring Sam Jones, with a soundtrack by the band Queen, which came out in 1980. I have no idea how both men were able to get the rights to make a Flash Gordon movie at the same time, but there you go. Anyway, I wasn't familiar with the cartoon as a kid, so when I saw the action figures in the store, I didn't understand why they looked so different from the people in the movie. At some point, I assumed that Mattel didn't have the license to make the figures based on the movie characters, so they had based them on old 1930s comic strips. But it wasn't until years later that I would learn about the cartoon and realize that the toys were based on that rather than either the 1980 movie or the old comic strip. Not only were the figures based on the cartoon, but Mattel did a very good job of making the figures look a lot like the cartoon characters. The first 4 figures were Flash Gordon, Ming, a Lizard Woman, and Thun the Lion Man. Dr. Zarkov and Beastman arrived later, as did Voltan and Captain Arak. Beastman wasn't actually a single character in the cartoon, but more like a species of ape-like humanoids. So technically, you could have multiple Beastman figures in your collection, just like you might have a bunch of Stormtroopers from Star Wars or Cobra Troopers from G.I. Joe. Although the Beastman figure was clearly based on the characters from the 1970 Flash Gordon cartoon, the history of these characters goes all the way back to the 3rd comic strip of Flash Gordon in January of 1934, when Flash meets the Red Monkey Men of Mongo. These guys look a lot like another Red Beastman character who you might have seen before, right down to the blue shorts. The characters return with a different look in a comic strip from 1937 called The Beastmen of Mongo. Those original Beastmen were a good bit different from the characters in the cartoon, mainly in color, but I suspect the original Beastmen influenced the writers of the New Adventures of Flash Gordon. However, the Beastmen probably weren't the only characters from the comic strip to influence the Beastmen from the cartoon. There were also a group of cannibals called the Tuskmen, who were blue and wore furry shorts. So it's possible that the Beastmen from the cartoon were a combination of both the Beastmen and the Tuskmen from the old comic strip. Although the Beastmen characters in the cartoon were often carrying spears, the Beastman figure didn't come with any accessories. The figure did have black furry shorts and a yellow collar. Technically, the Beastmen in the cartoon had a light blue color in most scenes of the cartoon, but it was occasionally colored tan. Either way, the yellow color definitely works well on this figure. The Beastman figures had 4 points of articulation. You could move them at the shoulders and the hips, but their heads and body were one solid piece, so the head wasn't posable at all. I think it's great that Mattel made a figure for Beastman. He's a cool figure, and even if you didn't have any of the other figures for the Flash Gordon line, you could have Beastman running around with your other lines of 3 3/4 inch action figures. He fit along well with figures from Star Wars, especially the Cantina aliens. Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek the Motion Picture. I didn't have any of the Star Trek aliens as a kid. But he could also hide amongst your Clash of the Titans and Rimco Monsters figures. Heck, with a little imagination, he could even be a short Bigfoot for your adventure people, or a small Gorilla Grodd for your pocket superheroes. Did you have any of the Flash Gordon action figures as a kid? Do you collect them now? Who's your favorite figure in the line? Tell me in the comments below. Also, please give this video a like and share it on social media. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notifications bell so that you'll be notified when I post new videos. And one last thing, if you're a fan of toys, you should know about ToyLanta, the biggest toy show in the southeastern United States, held annually just north of Atlanta, Georgia. Visit ToyLanta.com for more information. As always, thanks for watching.